Do do do. Welcome to Electricprenuer Secrets, the Electrician podcast. We're here 5 days a week to help you master sales, simplify pricing,
You got it.
and deliver premium level service. As you can tell, we got rid of all the fancy shit to just show up live for you guys here every day, really unrehearsed. And today's no exception, where I'm going to be telling my story and how it relates to this topic. Allstars are timeable, not teachable. There's some clarity there. Joining me as always is my esteemed co-host, Joseph, the sales bot Lucani, also interview extraordinaire today. How you doing, Joe?
I'm doing good, but I wouldn't say I'm an interview extraordinaire. I'm just someone who finds your personality magnetic, and I'm looking forward to learning more about you as well.
Yeah, for sure. And a big piece of that is it's always fun when someone says something like that, because I haven't always felt that way. I also identify as someone who's neurodivergent. My mind's all over the map. We're going to get into that stuff today, how to deal with some of that stuff, how to turn some of these vulnerabilities into strengths, and how an unlikely ugly duckling turned out top of the pack here, doing some great things with himself. Talking about myself, little pat on the back, as you guys are going to find out here shortly. I've got a little preface that I want to introduce.
By all means, man, go for it.
Tony Robbins once said, if you're going to blame people for the stuff that's happened for you, then we also have to thank them. I need to make it abundantly clear here that my story is not pretty. It's not perfect, and there are definitely nasty points along the way. Everyone who played a part, seemingly good or bad, has helped give me this gift that I received today. I have bad things to say about my mother, but man, do I love her dearly. I have bad things to say about my actions, but boy, do I love who I am today. I have shade for my oldest daughter's mother, but my God, did she ever give me a gift. Things don't happen to us. Things happen for us. That's the only thing I have written for today, because it's so important to say that.
Man, you're setting the bar pretty high on this one, aren't you?
A little bit.
I love it. So I feel like if we're going to just jump into it and start understanding what makes you you, I want to also address the fact that, I mean, to me personally, you've always been a magnetic person. Like when people say that you've got the voice for podcasts, you're always up, your energy is always so high. I mean, was this always the case? Were you always like this, man?
No, not at all. And just to acknowledge, just quick, before I answer that in entirety, I just want to acknowledge where we are. There's nothing that makes me special other than I didn't give up. What makes this special is all of you who are listening right now. The fact that you're here giving a shit about my story makes this an incredible experience. Just the same as your interview that got so much attention. And so many people poured their hearts out, reached out and connected with you on some of the relatable things that you had to face, that they've faced also. It means the world to us. Even in a conversation we had behind the scenes earlier in our daily development meeting, we agree on this one thing. There's no amount of money, there's no amount of rewards outside of you guys, you listeners, you viewers, you patrons, you prospects, you clients succeeding at the highest level. There's no reward for us higher than that. And so everything that I'm about to share with you guys has led to this moment where I get to work with, honestly, my best friend at this point, where I get to be with the girl of my dreams, where I get to have not just my oldest biological daughter, but also a stepdaughter, a second chance to someone that's in my house. I get to raise another child. Never got the boy I wanted. That's another story. We're going to insert some humor in this too. Man, am I grateful for all these things that have come together. I get to do what we love. And it's still relative to the trade that I love too. So I feel empowered by that.
And I appreciate you sharing that, man. I mean, once again, I was going to say, you come across incredibly magnetic. People want to listen to you. As someone even once said, and this is a statement that I feel is really, really true. Someone called you the flame that the moth is attracted to. right?
Yeah.
And I mean, am I wrong? Is that not something that was literally said?
Yeah. From our first podcast episode, before I knew it was going to arrive at this, we interviewed Guillermo Castillo. And behind the scenes, I asked Guillermo that because Guillermo is with a couple other coaching enterprises. He's with Certain Path, formerly SGI.
Mm-hmm.
Big, been around for years, helped a lot of people with different things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's also been with Joe Grady, SPG, who's helped him very much there and has a great track record. You're welcome, Joe, for the plug. And so I just asked him flat out, Guillermo, where do I sit in this? I appreciate your opinion because he was another one that was, felt that magnetism that came to me and said, hey, I want to tell my story with you. And we should, you should really have a podcast. So in that moment, I did ask that. And I appreciate you bringing that up because that's what he told me. And Guillermo's such a magnet himself. I just love that guy.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite interviews of all time. And he did say that. He said, you're a light in a dark room for electricians.
Mm-hmm.
But forget the programs, forget everything else. You've got this vision and you've got this magnetism and you're helping people. It doesn't
So
have
I've
to be
always,
anything more than that. Sorry, go ahead.
no, you're right. You actually said something that I want to tie into.
Yeah.
And the thought that usually comes from it is that it's a sad thought, but you shine so bright in where you are right now. But I've learned that those that shine really bright often had darker pasts. And I was going to say, were you always this happy? Like, was there always this kind of love of life? Were you always so on 100 all the time? Where did this come from? Where did this drive come from?
Man, 100% lost for half of my life. 100% lost. I don't know if anyone can relate to that. Let us know in the live chat if you're with us, or, join the Facebook group and just let us know. If you ever felt lost, then you felt like I did. As a kid, like I said, some bad things are going to be said here today, but love my mom, love what happened. But honestly, she wasn't there a lot. So I spent a lot of my childhood trying to sort out some of the unfair punishment routines that were happening. There was some stuff there, some conflict where it wasn't just a disagreement. I didn't really understand why I was in trouble. But my mom, love her to death, like I said, coming here for lunch today. And I want her to know that I do love her that much and it's okay. And we've had this conversation that wasn't always fair, but you know what? She didn't have it fair. And we tend to be a product of our upbringing. And so that unfairness tends to pass through generations. And so as a kid, I think due to that and just due to the genes that I was passed on, and I believe in generational trauma being stored in our genetics and in our organs and every cell of our being. So there's a lot of my family history like fled from Hitler times. We're German. We fled to Canada, and my great Opa, for example, was put in a concentration camp. They thought he was a spy here. So he just disappeared one day from his family for, I think it was 2 years he was gone. And my great Oma was raising 5 kids on her own. That kind of stuff, I believe, is stored in our genes. So long story short, I was always very quiet and observant, but my mind was running like a fucking racehorse all the
What's
time.
that like? What is that like right there? You say your mind's running all the time, but I mean, so many of us understand what it's like to be busy, but not everyone understands what's going on behind the scenes. Can you kind of describe what you mean when you say, because you and I have talked before and you said, what's it like when you first wake up? Like, can you describe, can we get in your head a little bit?
Well, yeah, right now, it's like I want to grab my phone, shut off the alarm, and then see whose message, see the wins for the day, because I'm Pacific Coast, so I'm 3 hours behind. You're already working and checking in with our clients and seeing their performance updates and seeing who hit platinum today, seeing who we get to help, who's facing a challenge. And I love that. And I go to bed with that and I wake up with that. And the times I do reel back, I'll get up early on a Sunday morning even, which is our family day only, no work. And I'll hit the whiteboard with just fresh ideas, fresh strategies for this company, for this growth, to help people at the next level, to build and lead by example, to bring more people into our vision, right? Just anything I can to perpetuate this goal of rising this tide that floats all electrical boats.
This has got to come from somewhere though. Like, you've got this mission stance, this and I can see it. It was so magnetic. I came to you And we're going to get to that as well. But like the thing is where is this drive coming from? Like, were you like this kid that like everyone liked? And yeah, you had a hard family life, but you were surrounded by friends. Like, because that's what's happening. And that's what I'm seeing here. People just can't seem to get enough of you. So where did
Yeah.
this come from?
I think tying back to the mom stuff, we had some challenges. She worked nights. I can remember waking up alone for the first time at like 4 or 5. And there's this vivid memory of just like, we used to bunny ears the TV. And so at night, the programs would shut off. Like literally, TV wasn't 24 hours a day back then, right? It was like lines and boo. And I can hear that noise for the rest of my life. It's there sometimes when I wake up and when I go to sleep, also known as tinnitus, but that's what it relates to. And it's that moment that no one was there. I just cried in front of this thing until I fell asleep. And so that early on, there was sort of this independence, but also I needed recognition. I needed approval. I was looking to get that attention. I was trying to earn that. And still to this day, we talked about it this morning with the post yesterday, a bit on my story. Most people don't know this, but one of the owners of that $20 million company commented near the end. And he said, "Hey, Clay, like really good to see you on this trend, finding your groove. Congratulations." To give that perspective, I don't think I could say it enough, how important those words coming from one of my first mentors are to me. That validation is the word I've been hunting for and not been able to get it out of my mouth. Validation has been driving me forever, for as long as I can remember, trying to, and this is the Allstar quality. This is the acid test. Allstars love to be measured. And and maybe I need to dial that back a bit more, that's an attitude thing, not a skill thing. And that's why I said to start this, like it's timeable, not teachable. There are things they need to learn to come out of that shell. There are, in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the basic needs that we need to fulfill before an all-star can realize their self actualization, their esteem needs. But when we help someone get to that point, it's really, there's this internal drive for that validation and to succeed at a higher level. And I think that, to answer your question, is why so many people who face adversity have this thing, this knack, this lever. So for me, losing was always fucking devastating. I can remember a key moment, before the teen years, being a pitcher, and I could not hit the strike zone. And we're at the age where like, okay, we're learning how to, throw a fastball, throw a curveball, right? Throw a changeup. I know you're not a big sports guy, but we're learning how. It doesn't mean you really could yet. I'm like 10, 11 years old. But my coaches are like, yo, we're going to send you to Roger Clemens pitching camp. And just to give that context, this is early and I never got to see this opportunity through. But when I look at MLB rosters and pitchers now, they're all 6'2" and 185 pounds. I'm 6'2" and 185 pounds. Like I was built for that shit. And there's this umpire at this key moment, and I could not hit the strike zone. I couldn't find it. And I just remember freaking out. Like literally, I looked at the coach, I'm crying on the mound, and I'm just like, pull me. And we all have these coaching moments, right? Where someone put us through something really hard that we were thankful for. Shook his head. He didn't even give me dignity of response. I remember looking beyond the umpire, beyond the cage, and seeing my dad like hiding, like, and all the other parents kind of looking at him and looking at me. What's this kid doing? Freaking out on the mound. He's just hiding, and I'm yelling at the coach, pull me. And then he did give me that response. I'm not pulling you. You've got to see this inning through.
I feel like that lesson right there, like literally, granted, you can't tell, but my hair is standing up. It's one of those ones where it's like one of those things. I'm literally waiting at the edge of my seat to hear like what happened? Like what happened next? What did that lesson teach you? Because you've talked to me about you've started businesses, you've ran businesses, you've failed businesses, you've gone through so much in life. What did that particular lesson teach you? Was that a platform that you went off, or was that just some random event in your life?
is one of a sequence of events where I really had to face something difficult. It's not one I talk about a lot, but here's what happened that was a definition of character that meant it wasn't time yet. Is the next actions I did then was I threw another pitch, missed the strike zone again, walked a guy. And at that time, I yelled at the top of my lungs while bawling, "This ump sucks." And what was happening at that point is I was stuck playing below the line, as we say. Blame, excuses, denial. I couldn't take accountability, even though I'm the one throwing the ball. What also happened is out of anger, I threw the fastest pitches of my life. Like the kids at the plate were scared. I probably wrecked my shoulder that day, honestly. Because now, like when I play soft pitch, right, go beer league or something and go play with people, man, they put me in outfield. I need a cutoff guy. Like I cannot throw from center field to second base. I don't make it. My arm is just noodled.
That's one thing that you and I will definitely agree with. I threw shot put in high school, and this is as high as my shoulder goes. So I can only throw submarine. I actually can't throw overhanded anymore. Yeah. So hey, when we T-ball it up, we'll be able to make that happen. But
you asked an important question. I want to answer it still. Like I said, there's a sequence of events. And as I continue to face these difficult times in life, more and more I realized things weren't going my way. I was going down the wrong road. And skipping ahead, I mean, that leads me to hanging out with the wrong people. That leads me to finding love on the streets, honestly, because it's a topic we talk about now with our daughters, because those people will show you more attention and more love, and you'll do things together that are outside of sometimes legalities, sometimes outside of the norm, outside of the box, that are exciting. And when you go through that with people as an adult, I can recognize, that was dangerous because we did things that connected us deeper that were wrong.
And the thing is there's something that's particularly that came up, and I've always wanted to ask this question, and I'm sure that people don't know it, but I remember you and I were talking about having difficult pasts, and the concept of tattoos came up, and you remember coming up and saying, well, I know what a rough past is like. In fact, I've got 2 snub nose 38s tattooed in my body. Yeah. And the thought is that you've gone through some places, you've gone through some dark stuff. But do you feel like, once again, that stuff happened to you? Like, what lessons did you learn living that kind of life?
A ton. You remember that song, "Who Let the Dogs Out"?
Yeah, I do remember that. That was back in early 2000s, right?
One of the first times I skipped half a day of school, that song was pretty new.
Really?
Yeah. And I'm like grade 10, started skipping school with this crowd. And we literally were like 6 of us hooligans walking down the block singing "Who Let the Dogs Out," barking at the top of our lungs. We were those kids you see walk by middle of the day and you lock your gate and lock your front door. It was brutal. But think about what I said before. We were singing together in harmony, doing it together. It was a community, and it showed me love where I was missing that in my life. That continued to get me into trouble. And I actually ended up dropping out of high school, deciding to move north where my aunt and uncles were, and really learning a lot of life lessons up in a place what I called Fort St. Texas. Fort St. John.
This place. Yeah.
Very redneck, very oil and gas oriented. Sorry to our friends and followers if you're in Texas. I mean, no offense. I loved a lot of things about that culture, but very hunting oriented place. You could leave your doors unlocked here because no one's going into your house. They know there's a shotgun and probably a 30-06 or a 300 Winnie Mag behind the door. And that thing will leave a freaking hole out the backside of you, right?
And behind the thing it hits as well.
Yeah, exactly. But going to that town, I learned a lot too, because it was surrounded by cowboys and I'm a little city slicker punk and they want to fight. You want to meet people, meet girls, you're going to the river party Friday nights, right? Which astonishes me now, looking back at all these underage drinkers drinking and driving home to their farms. Insane. But yeah, they had a bone to pick with me and I was fighting. At that time just to survive it, just to stake my claims as someone who could stay here and be here. and have friends and have girlfriends. And anyway,
It's one of those things where I wanted to know, because I've always loved to fight. That's just how I am and how I'm built. But you just seem like a loving kind of person. Like when I look at you, you exude positive energy. I can't almost imagine you being in the situation where you like to scrap. So was it something that you just had to do, or was it something where there was a thrill in defeating your opponents?
I didn't like an ounce of it, not even close. I still don't like fighting, but I have basically two speeds. When I seriously come into confrontation or conflict, I feel my heart sink, I feel my chest sink, and I have like, I want to go max volume and just project my emotions. And so when I'm controlling in those moments, I get shallow and lose my voice a bit, because it takes so much energy to like just contain that.
That
But
alpha energy, yeah.
yeah, yeah, it's crazy. But no, I never wanted to fight. I've always been good intention, good heart, just bad circumstances at times that led to bad choices at times that led to, ultimately at this time, I turned 19 in a youth correctional facility.
Tell me about that. I mean, like the thing is that we've gone through, you had a rough past, you're hanging out with the wrong crowd, you're having fights at the river parties, people are driving home drunk. How old are you around this point?
Yeah, so that was 16, 17 when I moved up to Fort St. John and started learning some hard lessons there. Of course, then I was really desperate for a crew, so really hung out with the wrong people and got in some trouble there, and ended up being in and out of the courts for a couple of years.
Mhm.
And yeah, it all came down to one day in a courthouse where I'm already 18. They'd need to give me 40 days for some of the stuff that had gone down. And I'm pleading with them to put me in a youth correctional facility so that I wouldn't have to be with the same crews that were in the adult house. And so I'm
Mhm.
actually, this case that went down as a bit of a precedence for law and youth cases, as being maybe the first and maybe the last person ever to be an adult sent to a youth correctional facility. I turned 19 in there, and they let me and my one buddy who was from the same town in there stay up till 9. Usually it was locked down at 8. Stay up till 9 with Coach Carter and popcorn, and let us play guitar a bit and chum. But again, I was talking about this shift where really it's a shift of accountability that kind of changed everything. And what I
I
had to
want,
do was learn how to lose. I was talking about this last night with Mariel, how like in there was this moment where I disagreed with what a guard had said. And we were kind of in the gymnasium playing badminton or something. And so I looked at him with intentional FU eyes. And without saying anything, the guy was like, intimidation, red alert. Everyone hits the deck, full lockdown of this whole place, and slams me down and just has me pinned. And for the first time in my life, there's nowhere to run. There was no out. There was nothing I could do. I looked at someone the wrong way, and he put me in my place.
damn. That's one of those moments where that's got to jar you to the core. And like the thing that I've learned is it seems like you've had this really, really rough upbringing, but it never seemed to shape you and keep you from the person that you are today. And I want to kind of skip forward a couple of years, because you said something that I always found was very beautiful. Now, as a father myself, I know that there are certain moments that happen where you have a choice to make. And what you told me at one point was, can you tell me and tell everyone else what changed when you had your daughter?
Yeah, so, tie these two together and skip that little bit is when I left that 40 days in youth corrections, I had some new realizations. One was, hey, 75 cents a day pay sucks.
Mm-hmm.
Two was, hey, I couldn't run for 40 days. I was held still. That was the most stability, the most you're not going anywhere that I've ever had in my life to that point. I mean, I was a runner, man. I would just run and drive and see aunts and uncles and family, and everyone had a hand in my upbringing. So what happened next was an insatiable desire to work and to earn my value. And
What do
I
you
just
do?
hit the ground running. And I continued doing some more carpentry stuff. And next thing you know, I'm a foreman for a buddy of mine building these twin apartments. And next thing you know, things are getting tight in the budget, as projects always do. We get into that.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're taking our overtime away, and I left. And me and my buddy there started our own concrete company and just started
Talk
doing
about
this
that.
flat work. And we were just going door to door sales. Like literally imagine me, it's May, 5 degrees, all concrete needs to set, right? So knocking on doors, people answering in their boxer shorts. I've got to tape measure some photos for reference and some pricing. Let's measure the square footage. I got the metrics, right? Like, let's get you a concrete driveway. I just about tripped on a stone up here. I'm thinking about suing if you don't. I never actually used that tactic, but that was my first introduction to home services, actually. And we were doing okay. A little bit of tenacity, a little bit of push,
The elbow grease.
a little elbow grease, and just, man, I couldn't, at the time, I didn't realize those skills that we were building up there.
Like what? Tell us about it.
Again, when you're young and you've got nothing to lose, we were going door to door. I'm still was one of my best friends, the guy I did that with. We were talking about it the other day. He's like general superintendent of a $300 million company, and we're building our empire. And I like, that can't be just a coincidence.
Mm-hmm.
Those are two grinders, man. And we weren't willing to do anything less of succeed. We just showed up, and having that accountability partner was probably a big piece of it. But like, hey, we're driving your truck or mine. I printed this stuff out. Yeah, I got the business cards. Okay, we're mixing envelopes in the truck, going to a neighborhood and canvassing the blocks, right? Like Ring or any of these security guys. And we didn't have uniforms. We had nothing, man. Beat up old truck with Flowmaster mufflers, blah, 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 roll up and then tape measure in an envelope. But it was just that commitment. Some of these guys are like oil tycoons who would hire us. These guys are millionaires, right? Why wouldn't you canvass the millionaire neighborhoods?
Mm-hmm.
Some guys would hire us just because. They're like, how old are you? What are you doing out here, little duckling?
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's cold. Tell you what, I'm going to do this driveway. I want you guys to make sure it gets done right. Walk me through your process. It reminded me a little bit, Grant Cardone told this story once in one of the trainings I was watching of his one time. How this guy came to his door banging at 5 p.m. Grant says, I was having dinner with my family. I go to the door, I'm annoyed. Like any homeowner, I'm annoyed right now. I don't want to answer the door. You're banging on my door at dinner time for. And there's this little Spanish guy, younger fella, and he's got, a couple tools with him on his belt, and he's there to polish your culture stone, polish any rocks on your property. Grant's got a nice big house, so tons of rock, nice stuff needs to be cleaned. And Grant goes, I'm not interested. And the guy, the tenacity of this kid, he's like, wait, let me prove my value. And he got down on his hands and knees and started washing the rocks before his feet. Grant gave him the job.
I mean, that is some serious dedication to your craft, because clearly this guy believed in himself. And honestly, I've seen that. I don't mean to try and talk you up, but Clay, I have an immeasurable amount of respect for you, because I don't doubt that you're that exact same guy. And I'm willing to say that to everyone who's listening. You are always and have always been that person who is willing to say, let me prove it. And every single time you have. So was this something that is forged, or like not forged, like faked? Is this something that was created, or was this something that was nurtured? Did you always have it, or did you develop this?
And again, I can't count my blessings enough. This dude that I partnered with, I owe him a lot of credit too, Jake Johnstone. Still, like I said, one of my brothers from another mother, and I lived with him and his dad for a number of those years. Mm-hmm. They were there for me when I went into the youth correctional and when I came out, and they're hardworking mofos from the north, man. I don't know. It's still to this day, Jake's one of the only people that I know outwork me. Right. And if he hears this, he's probably chuckling right now, thinking Clayton's not even a hard worker. Right? Like, bit of a dickhead, really.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because I
Love
know
you,
you're a
brother.
grinder. I mean, you and I put in some hours.
So it's also we talk about this, machine efficiency and programmable logic. I mean, some of my favorite topics as we go down my experience, industrial electrician, blah blah blah. It's all these inputs adding up, and there's something called your reticular activating system that is growing, and it's constantly taking those inputs and it's influencing your outputs.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've used this example many times. Someone shared it with me, and it's genius. Like, how many times have you breathed since we've been on this podcast?
I could give you an average, but I probably couldn't give you an accurate
How many
one.
times you blink,
Couldn't tell you that.
right? How many times you wet your lips, right? How many times you look up to the left to envision something, imagine something.
You're
As we
catching
get
me on
deeper and
that.
deeper into this, we realize really there's a Pareto principle at play here too. In fact, it's more of a 95-5. 95% of what we're doing is subconscious, right? And a lot of us are just trying to figure that shit out and how to leverage it or how to tweak it to our favor, because 95% of us are battling those same inputs and outputs every day. And we go live on a podcast every day and present action and all-star action. Let me ask you, if you're listening, I mean, this is pretty logical, I think. If you were to only listen to our podcast and just do what we said, right? Run your electrical business, but every day you actually took those actions. I know that's a tall order, that's a lot. But
Mm-hmm.
would you be better than you are? Would you be further than you are?
Yeah, I honestly wish that the podcast was around when I was running my business. I honestly, as cheesy as it might sound, I wish that I could have met you when I was younger. But I have a feeling that we get into the river at the same time for different reasons.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I feel like we both needed to grow to best utilize each other's strengths. So let's go further into this, right?
In
You've
fact,
gone
I
through
got to
this.
stop you because there's something important coming here. It's a segue.
By all
We were
means.
doing door to door and we were somewhat successful. I mean, I would consider it success because we'd never done this before.
Mm-hmm.
We were just like, we got to do this. We're going on our own. No one's going to take care of us. We got to take care of us. And
Mm-hmm.
so we made it work for a while. Right. And then I got an opportunity to come back to Vancouver and actually work on the Hillcrest Rec Center for the Olympics. I learned a ton about concrete and foundations there, like giant radius 16-foot gang forms, which are like massive curved wall. Doing that in plywood means like you're constantly like notching this plywood and wetting it and bending it and making multiple layers. Like, it was the craft of concrete.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up leading a crew there and doing well, and then the guy I worked for building twin apartments in Fort St. John, one of my other best friends, Myron, says, "Hey, I've got this project up north. It's concrete. You could handle this. We're doing the Enerplex Fort St. John, 3-story, twin rinks in the bottom, speed skating oval up top. You know that's Canadian. And the third story is a running track suspended above that. We're talking like, man, specialized concrete services."
Mm-hmm.
At this point, I'm thinking, I've experienced it all. I've been a couple years in concrete now. What could stop me?
Mm-hmm.
Couple years, right? Laughable. But when we're young, time seems to be slow and take forever. And so a little bit of ego, a lot of arrogance. And I'm thinking, this is mine. I'm going to get this job. And just like people we see in the electrical trade, just to relate this, in projects in general, the last time we ever see someone celebrate a project is during the award.
Mm-hmm.
The revenue number at the award. In this case, that's the funny part. This ended up being a $44 million complex.
Mm-hmm.
As you could imagine, there was a lot of concrete involved. My bid for the foundation of this place, being one of the people to break ground on this site, originally was started at $75,000.
How?
Insane.
How?
I had no metrics. I had no business knowledge. I had no project knowledge. Like, I'm like 20 years old, right? Like, I'm a mess taking this job, but my pride and my ego all led me down this path. So I literally took this 75K that the contractor who was going to sub it to me wanted me to do it for. And I went to my friends and the other superintendent on site. And I was literally like, do you think this is a fair number?
What they tell you.
Oh, I'd be at least 20 grand hired.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm not in concrete,
Yeah.
but the first thought is if you have a $44 million property, you've got to. My minimum was like, oh, what's he gonna undersell it? 2 million?
Yeah.
Like I'm just 75,000. It's like holy shit.
I came to
But
find out, and of course, it was, municipal project never goes to budget. So I don't even remember what the original town budget was, but I think it was overshot 50%. Like
yeah,
projects are awful for this stuff. But I come to find out later, after losing my shirt, after this crying at the bank story, after all that crap went down, losing my whole company, everything I'd worked for, I paid my people, I absorbed government debts, and I dealt with it. But that contract was actually around 450. So the guy gave me 25% of it basically to take it as far as I could. It was unethical to give me that award. It was unethical for me to approach it. The only challenge I have, and I don't complain again, I thank him for this because it made me who I am today. It made me passionate about this. But the only challenge I have there is, again, the ethics. It's obvious that someone that doesn't know, gung-ho or not, right? We don't let people come into our program who aren't a good fit just because they're excited about it.
we've had to turn a lot of people away specifically for that reason.
Right?
So the thing is okay. So you get this situation, and I want to actually call out because this is something that you've told me that I've always had an immense amount of respect for you for. Now, there are two types of business owners. There's the type that care about themselves. Like there's a difference between a leader and a boss. A leader is the kind of person that says, I'm going to go first and I'm going to pave the way for everyone else. And a boss is at the back going, charge. It's what I understood from this story was you got that award, you got paid, you did the work. But instead of fleeing to Nicaragua with the money in your pocket, you paid all your people first. And then you took on the debt. You didn't pay the debt with what you got. You said you guys earned it. There are very few people that I know of in my life that would be willing to operate at that level of ethics that young in life. I don't know if that was established enough in this conversation, but that is a big indicator of who you are.
Most business owners would have been successful sooner than I was. That became the long road. But ultimately, I appreciate you acknowledging that because those guys worked hard for me. They stood by me in times when I couldn't pay them on time. Sometimes they worked 4 weeks without a paycheck. That wasn't fair to anyone, but they did that. And I never claimed bankruptcy either. I did debt consolidation and I dealt with it over the coming years. As I started over in the new trade, which is a funny story, but through my apprenticeships, when I got my journeyman ticket 3.5 years later, was about the same time I finally paid off all of those debts from that first company.
Wow. So 3 years later, chipping away at it. I mean, like, also, how do you go from concrete to electric?
Yeah. So at the time, I managed to just kind of grease some wheels and get in with employment insurance in Canada. That's what they're called, EI. And they were going to pay for schooling. I was going to go back to school for power engineering and try to get more into the oil and gas stuff again, right? And try to make a living there. And again, man, coincidence after coincidence. I don't know. Life happens to you, not for you, right? The teacher quit. The teacher of the program quit. I had financing in place. Everything was ready to go. The teacher quits. And so my advisor was like, yo, we can't fund a class with no teacher. You got to look into something else in case we don't find a replacement. That's the reality. This is life. So she's like, you should look into instrumentation. We also call that air plumbing. Up there in facility, instrumentation is really important. Stainless steel tubing and pneumatic devices, right? With control electrical to it. That's the dream up there.
Yeah, I actually spent a lot of time in that area.
Oh, nice. And I hated tubing. I had done a little bit of pipe fitting in the patch before. And so having to do a couple pieces of tubing were some of the most frustrating days of my life. I just couldn't figure it out back then. Ironically, again, foreshadowing the fact that later I would become a conduit king for industrial facilities with rigid aluminum. But anyways, so I had to do that. So listen, this is where it all gets really fucking weird. I opened the Yellow Pages phone book. Still a thing back then.
Yeah, I was going to say we're dating ourselves here.
I look for the first instrumentation company, and I'm just going to search for information about like power engineering versus instrumentation. And maybe this is actually better than I'm thinking. I just need a little help in this decision. This name of this company, EPSCAN, comes up. I pick up the phone, I call their number, and this sweet little gal, CSR, so to speak, little gal up front, Leslie, picks up the phone. She was with us for a lot of years there. And I tell her what's going on. I say, hey, I'm just, kind of really looking into power engineering, instrumentation, just trying to figure out which school to go to and hoping I could talk to someone to help me with that decision. Leslie's supposed to be a gatekeeper. Mm-hmm. Love her dearly, right? What is a gatekeeper supposed to do?
The goal is to say, well, unfortunately, the boss is either in a meeting or at a conference or on vacation, or he's just died, but he's not here. So you have to leave a message and we'll get back to you.
So just to be clear, this little family operation, not so little, ended up being, $20, $30 million business, I think, these days. She says, well, the founder of the company, the owner, Don Sterling, the dad and his two sons that are running this, the founder, Don's available. Let me put him on the phone for you. And at the time, I don't recognize what this company is. I don't even recognize how big it is. There are Yellow Pages at. I don't know. I called them. Mm-hmm. And he gets on the phone and then, back and forth and starts asking me the kind of questions you don't ask in an interview because it's a phone call. I phoned him. He can ask, yeah, you got a family? Yeah. What's going on? Why the change? And I told him about the company and everything. And he goes, why don't you just come to work? He said, I'll set up an interview with my son. Can you make it here tomorrow? I'm like, oh, work sounds nice. let's go to this interview, see what happens. Mm-hmm. And the son, he and I didn't really see eye to eye right away. Took a few years for us to become buddies, but he's like, listen, instrumentation, I don't think is the best fit for you. I'm not really looking for that right now. But with your carpentry background, you could be basically an aluminum carpenter for our electrical team. I think you'll see more success there. Mm-hmm. And at this time, I'm like, you know what? You're going to hire me, dude? I think I actually said to him in this interview, just give me a ticket then. Let's go. If you're signing me up for a ticketed program, I'm in. Let's do it. So at $15
an hour.
What
you're getting yourself into. You didn't know who this company was. Man. But think about it. Like, can we just hold back and reel back a little bit for a second? Everyone trying to get a job right now. Imagine being able to go to a random, throw your dart against the board. You call the Yellow Pages. The gatekeeper fails her job, connects you to the owner, gives you an interview on the spot, then sets you next day with a contract, and then you're working directly with the son. Like, this doesn't happen. Yeah. Don't you feel like at a certain point there was a hand guiding you?
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. At the time, it didn't feel like it. Felt like I was owed everything I was given. And you mentioned the segue with my daughter. She was an infant at that stage. And, after many sleepless, hungry days and running from the government and not sorting out my taxes and all this shit in the wake of that company, having my daughter was like, yeah, I got to do something. I have to continue. This isn't over. It was the second thing since the correctional facility that had actually put a pin in my tail. It was like, you're not going anywhere. Time to face the music, and you better fucking face it well, because there's someone counting on you.
Yeah, our daughters have the abilities to both draw out the best of us, but to also let us know, like, this is it. This is what you brought me here. Now, what are you going to do about it to make this work?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm proud of you for doing it happen. So tell me about this happening. So you end up going to work in the aluminum division. Then what? How do you go from I'm entry level to conduit king?
Yeah, so basically, it was a lot like carpentry. It wasn't so much an aluminum division. It's just that really there's a general order of operations on the industrial sites. Mm-hmm. You go to site, you get the lay of the land, you get the welders and the steel put into place between the buildings. You start bonding everything, you run your tray, you finish bonding everything, you pull tech cable, and then you're all devices, gland and terminate all day. And you're commissioning. It's clockwork over and over and over. So I've always been a quick learner, even in schools. Like I wouldn't do my homework, but then I would get B's and A's on the test. I've always been a person of, present, not perfect, point of saturation, and then just move on. That's just that ADHD thing kicking in. That's that busy brain. Like I need the next. I can't do the same shit over and over. So very quickly I rose through that. And on one of the first jobs I was on a construction job that they put me on, there was the old team that kind of cycled out. And I remember it was like my first day with all these new guys on a project. And it's, we had lunch, 12 happened, 12:30, lunch is over. And I go out in the field, it's like 1:45. And the site super, a couple of the foremen, a couple of journeymen, were all sitting in a circle still talking. And I didn't know what I was doing. So I literally walked into this circle jerk and I was like, hey guys, I'm about to make some mistakes over here. So are you guys done with lunchtime? Like I thought that was 15 minutes ago. Let's go. And the super and everyone looks at me and they're like, who the fuck is this guy? Right. So like crosshair on my back right off the bat. But because my business had failed, because I had been there, I had the best intentions for this company that I was working for now from day one. And I didn't care who I was going to piss off to help them accomplish that. I couldn't let that happen again. That's what was different about me from this point on was failure. I could not fail. And every time I did, I was like in tears, ready to yell, cuss, fight, break shit. Like there was lots of those up and downs just getting through this. And Conduit became a place of validation. As we were building these compressor stations, this consultant came over. There's a team of about 10 of us on site. And I'm like first or second year at this point. And a consultant comes over to me just to talk. He liked to talk to everyone and just pick his favorites, right? He's like, he kind of had a funny voice. Ivan, good dude though. I think he had a nasal problem, but he goes, yeah, Clayton, how long is this compressor building going to take you to pipe? And I said, 3 days. And he gave me one of those and he goes, I've never seen anyone do it in 3 days before.
And what did that do for you right there? What did that do?
Yeah, so he went to the foreman on site and told him, oh, I hear your compressor building is going to be done in 3 days. And that foreman came to me and was like, hey, you got to be careful what you're saying to this guy. We can't do this in 3 days. And then we did it in 3 days. I led a team through that. We absolutely dominated, construction site stuff, music on, get a rhythm. There's some Johnny Cash on there, get a rhythm. When you've got the blues. We didn't have the blues, man. We were in sync. We killed it. And that became the precedence for these sites. So the next site, Ivan, come right to me. You got this one in 3 days? I think we can actually improve, Ivan. Here's how. Next thing you know, I'm on the strategy board, like helping with, we won't actually pipe this. We'll tech that under the building. That's going to save us about 4 hours. These kind of little improvements. Next thing you know, I'm a second year running these jobs, running a truck, getting paid journeyman wage, realizing some awesome bonuses. I love that company. I love those guys so much. I can't say enough about how they helped drive me. In fact, like I said, the guy that posted on my post from yesterday with my story and congratulating me, he gave me my first self-help book, my first personal growth book. And it was Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yep.
And it wasn't necessarily in the sense that he gave me the physical book, but he gave me the idea of it. And I remember because running jobs, I was taking like half an hour a day and reading. I was growing me too. That was one of the advantages of working so hard to get to that office, the site office. And he came to site one day and he was taking a call. He's in my office and I'm just reading. I was open about it. I told him like, hey man, I'm growing me too. It's for everyone's good, right? And he was like, yeah, absolutely. So he gets off the phone. I'm still reading and he peers over my shoulder. And just from recognizing some of the text I'm going through, no title, he says, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And I was like, yeah, how'd you know? I love that book. And from that moment, we just kind of grew and he helped, continue helping me grow. At times he'd come fill in for me if I was on vacation we did these sites for the next couple of years and we just made a killing. and we got so much more efficient, and we dialed those in so much. It really became like, Christmas bonus checks, like tens of thousands of dollars. Here you go.
But
Fucking
you provided
incredible.
your value. That was the thing. Some people think, and this is a quote that actually I used to keep in my office, you're not paid for your time, you're paid for your value. So the thing is that you had a second year journeyman or a second year person coming in right out the gates, leading crews, shaving off hours, which in their effect is probably millions of dollars. And when you add it up, every hour you save is thousands and thousands of dollars. So
Yeah.
even if they gave you a $50,000 check, add a zero for it, and that's probably what you made them.
Yeah. Oh
And
yeah.
that
These
you
jobs were
deserve
worth
it.
millions. They
Yeah.
were worth millions, and we were crushing them off in 3 months.
So the thing is this, let's fast forward this a little bit because I want to figure out how to bridge from where you were to where you are because I want to make sure we stay on point with time.
Yeah.
So you've gone to a point now. Why the fuck did you leave? Like, what was there anything bigger beyond this? Like, why did you get out of that field if you were so good at it?
Yeah. Yeah. So that, these guys did a couple things for me. They were always interested in my growth too, the brothers of that company. And Shane taught me something. The same fella taught me something really important. We were driving to a site one day, and he said, is it unreasonable to say that I would pay you $1 million a year? And I went, well, I kind of chuckled, right? And he's like, no, I'm serious. Can you see yourself making that? And I said, well, yeah, I could see it. That'd be nice, but I don't know how. And he said, well, if you make me 2 million, why wouldn't I pay you 1 million?
Hmm.
This is the problem with pricing in general. It's the same problem. We look at the market, we look what's happening around us, and we make assumptions about the limitations that are put on it. There's no fucking limits, man. If you take anything from this story, take this. You can do anything you put your mind to. And 95% of it comes down to how you treat people and provide value for a person.
That actually ties into a lesson that you and I have both shared. I mean, we both study under Jim Rohn, as you say, the late great. And one of his lessons that he goes through is, what, could I make the same amount of money in an hour if I found a way to do it more efficiently? If I could provide more value for the hour, could I get paid more? Could I get paid 2, 3, 4, 5 times in an hour? And the answer is yes. And clearly you were able to come to that understanding after all of these years of cumulative knowledge. And now, boom, you're in this spot. Now, what do you do with this revelation though?
Yeah, so there's one more I got to tie in there, and it's the other brother said something to me once upon a time, comparing leadership styles. He always said that my leadership style, and the third party opinions matter, guys. It gives us another perspective, right? So that's another input influencing this. He said my leadership style was I always wanted to make ninjas. I loved promising that I would make you the best you could be. And doesn't that ring true today?
I mean,
Isn't that what we do?
Yeah. I mean, like you and I share that mission. And one of the things is even the way I describe it, I want to make every student better than me. And I know you want to make every student better than you, not so that we can brag about it, because we genuinely want to make a world better than we found it.
Absolutely.
I couldn't think of anyone else better to share this vision with.
So I still had this burning desire, and I helped these guys. I would call meetings. I would do everything I could for their business development too. I was the entrepreneur that we talk about sometimes, that person that has the influence inside a company. That's why I stayed there. They're the longest people I was ever employed by, both as an employee and a contractor. But the contractor bit is what we're getting to. I still had a hole. I still had a business that failed, and I still needed to redeem myself. So I got my lift off right there. I became a contractor, and I made the decision to leave them. It was also slow time. So it wasn't like there was some change, right? Projects are ebb and flow, and there was just a change of winds, and it just felt like time. So I actually ended up going to a place called Fort McMurray, and Canada is known for oil sands, dirty, gross work up there. Camp, I mean, you're cattle, you're a number. It's taking a plane, arriving there to make, $40 an hour to make your few grand every 2 weeks. And it was just awful. I only made it 10 days. And on the 7th day, I went online, I found Snap Incorporations, this company that could incorporate me online while I was in camp. I read a couple more of Robert Kiyosaki's books, and I decided, you know what? I'm in business again. Let's go. At the time, I was actually married to my former business partner. And just like you and I, she was the other side of the coin. Detail-oriented, great gal, friends for life, I'm sure. I really appreciate and love her. And you know what? She was so good at the quality side, quality control, dotting the I's, crossing the T's. So we started up in the second business around that 2016 mark and decided, you know what? We're going to do something that other people said we couldn't do. Be a contract construction management team. I had consultants telling us, you're crazy. That'll never work. No one will hire you. They don't want to give away all their secrets, put you in a place of leadership. There's too much risk. Here's the problem. If you're in projects, you know this. If you've ever been there, you know this. It's all or nothing. You got nothing, you bid everything. Then what happens? Old Uncle Murphy comes in and gives you 4 or 5 jobs at once. Now you're a shortage of resources. You can't even run these things. So next thing you know, we're cranking out 40, 50K months at times with live out allowance from the same projects that we were running anyways for our employers before. So next thing you know, it was just the two of us. We were a shared household, shared income. All that was earning that money was our tools and our assets that we already had. So income was going through the roof and time was going through the floor, to answer your question finally. And that's what broke. That was the straw that broke the camel's back. In fact, ultimately, I would credit all of that for really leading us to an eventual breakup as well, just a couple years ago. Ultimately, trading all your time for money wasn't the answer either.
Oh, man, I can relate with that story so much. It's like, I was always taught you can have time or you can have money, but very few of us have both. And people with money will trade their money for time. And people with time will trade that time for money. And clearly you had the time, but the priorities were a little off and you chased the money. And as a result, that was the fruit that you reaped.
Burned me out, man. So you know what? Shortening on the back end here, because you guys know the more recent stuff is like, COVID hit, and for so many of us, it changed everything. It was that breath we needed to really take everything into consideration. I moved from that town. I went back south. I jumped right into coaching, and I jumped right into a master's degree of business. I never graduated, by the way. When I said you can literally do anything in this planet that you set your mind to, you can do that too. I'm serious. Think about that. I got allowed into a master's degree in business from a reputable school with grade 11, part of. No bachelor's degree in business because of that experience that I had, because of my drive to grow and exceed everything I'd been before. I did my PMP in 2016 when I got my master's license as an electrician. So my project management was just like, excelling. Then running a business again was like, okay, business management right back there, getting the principles again, building this up to eventually just going full in, knowing that, you know what, this insatiable hunger to redeem myself from that business and project failure in my first business was never going to end. So now I get to carry that passion on to help those that are around us. To A, make sure they never go into those pits. And B, if they do, help them recognize that that's not the end. One of the absolute best parts of being a tradesperson is honestly, guys, I said this in a call last night that I loved, by the way, with some potential clients here one day. If you're listening to this, you know who you are, and I absolutely enjoyed that time together. However, one of the biggest things, biggest outcomes when they said, you know what, we might be looking at 6 months. If we can't find the right people, we've got 6 months. That's fucking scary. And I remember being there, and I remember feeling all those feelings. And I remember wondering, how are we going to do this?
Yeah.
But as an electrician, even if you have to say the big B word, even if you have to pull back, you still have this and you still have this. And if you trained with us, then you know how to take this and bring it here to the mouth and actually speak this value. Had to remember to use my words there as we're on a podcast. Not everyone's visualizing this.
I know.
I touched my head, I touched my heart, I touched my mouth. Those are like the three centers that require this focus to elaborate, to build out your sales process, to know how to serve people at the highest level. And if you have that, it doesn't matter how in debt you go in this. It doesn't matter if you go bankrupt. It doesn't matter if you fail this round. What are you going to do tomorrow? You're going to lay around and sulk about it, or are you going to look at your family, then go back out there, go door to door if you have to, and go hustle what you know?
I would agree with that. So we're getting close to the wrap up at this point, and I want to tie into our current venture and our current mission and make sure that if nothing else, we want to add in and say, so how do you get into here? So you were in COVID, you got into coaching, you were more of like a generalist coach. Can you describe what happened when we started together and what the vision was and how this is influencing you and what its purpose and mission is?
Yeah, like I believe in coaching and I believe in personal development the whole way.
Yep.
I've talked about ABC money before, C money being what changed my life. And there's a single podcast that came down to Kyle Cease, The Illusion of Money. You guys want to listen to one and learn about ABC money. C money is what you invest in yourself. And the advantage of being a business owner is you can write that investment off. Mm-hmm. So welcome to the club, guys. If you're not growing right now and you're just out there facing the music in the fire every day, you're fucking missing it. Excuse my French. You got to get a hold of this thing and develop you. You got to train. You got to focus on personal development because it'll change your life like it changed mine. Mm-hmm. And what that means is investing in coaching. At times, I've paid thousands and thousands a month. The program I use to help me leverage and learn Facebook marketing, social media mastery, first cost me 10 grand American. I'm a little Canadian boy facing my own financial struggles, trying to grab hold of coaching. And I took 10 grand on my personal credit card, big hit, American. That washes out to like 13 and a half, by the way. It was a big hit, but that mentor helped me as well. Ruben helped me be able to leverage social media and be a master of this channel. It's one place that your clients are too. It's just one channel. And we've re-upped. Our current coaches are taking us deeper with that, right? To get into coaching, I wrote a $25,000 check to become a licensee of a program that honestly became a wash for me. I took a couple nuggets from that fella. Great mentor, but I took a couple nuggets and I went back on my own. And for the longest time, I was actually rejecting electrical as an option. I was so tired of the projects and I didn't understand what I could bring to this trade. I didn't yet have clarity on that vision. But all these pieces fell into place and I just kept serving and just kept serving. And with that first coach, he said, you got to focus down. You need a niche. You have to niche because you're speaking to everyone. And guess what? No one's hearing it. You hear that, guy? Speaking to everyone is speaking to no one. So he said, why are you ignoring the very language that you understand? It's electrical, it's electricians, and they need help too. And he was right. So for anyone that's thinking right now, something broke my heart in this trade, I lost faith in this trade, I lost love for this trade, something broke me in this trade. That's not eternal. That's not infinite. Once an electrician, always electrician. I maintained my master's electrician license. I did just let go of my bond. No more electrical work for me. But I'm here till the end. It took a little shift of mindset to say, how can I serve again? Instead of what can I take from?
And I feel like that's what makes you the person you are.
Absolutely. In doing that, I found Rebs, the Facebook group. I found Lloyd and what he wanted. And he was like us in concerns for electricians and wanting to rise this tide to float all boats. And that led me to gain the confidence that I never had before. My first post, the first times putting myself out here, terrified. I used to put posts and then go shake. putting my vulnerable little self out there, the same person that needs validation. What if someone doesn't like what I said? What if someone says I'm wrong?
Mm-hmm.
I used to shake, man. You ever feel like that?
I mean, yes. I mean, do you remember what it was like trying to get me to do social media?
Yeah, I do.
But now look where we are.
It always feels that way when you're doing something new. Until you
Mm-hmm.
have confirmation that this is helping people, it's
Mm-hmm.
hard. It's hard. Those are all self objections, though. This is all shit that we make up and hold ourselves back with just because we haven't experienced it yet. At this stage, I love what we do on social media. I love our marketing patterns. I love that it connects people to real solutions. I love that people then take those solutions, put them to work and have wins and come back and report them to us.
Mm-hmm.
And because of those content cadences, it all led to a day where I put this post out, why should I hire you? You and I had talked a couple times intermittently in the meantime. I was literally
Mm-hmm.
on a holiday. It was a lazy post. Why should I hire you? And next thing you know, I'm getting a DM from you. You're at a pivotal moment, as we talked about in your interview.
Mm-hmm.
It's the right door at the right time in the right place. Like, you can't make this shit up.
I don't think we could if we tried. I mean, like, if you think about it, where I was in my life and where you were in your life, and it was like I was already gainfully employed and doing really well with it. And the thought was, why should I hire you? And the entire time I was like, I wish I could work with Clay. Who I'm working for right now, I don't respect, but I can respect this person I've never met because everything you put out literally was just the best kind of most authentic and genuine content. You could tell by every post you were saying things because you either A, deeply believed it, but your motivation wasn't taking from someone. Your motivation was, what can I give back? And it was so foreign to me in the industry that I was trained in that I was like, I got to figure out who this guy is. I could not help myself. I was the moth. You were the flame, just like so many people have told about you in the past. And how I'm willing to tell everyone who's listening to this, you are a magnetic person. People are lucky to have you in their lives because you're always looking for what you can give them, not what you can take from them. Can you give an example? We had a call last night. Can you touch on that call for a second to describe the kind of person that you are?
Yeah. I spent an hour with, I sort of mentioned before, I spent an hour with a couple of prospects, a
Mm-hmm.
potential client, but again, they were really having trouble trying to find their A players.
Mm-hmm.
And so I spent that hour knowing that I was not going to make any sales pitch. And as I described to you, at the end of it, when I really perform at that level, when I'm really giving something my all for an hour, you're exhausted after. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what I felt after this. But in the last moments, it was just me assuring that there was continuity of the value that I expressed, that they had fresh ideas, fresh actions to take to get them out of this situation.
Mm-hmm.
Then I also disqualified them and said, listen, this isn't our primary focus right now. I know it because I've done it, but we're not teaching that necessarily directly in the capacity that you need to focus on it right now. And so what
Mm-hmm.
I want to do instead is book a follow-up meeting. We'll come together in a month's time and we'll just check up and see how you guys are doing. And if you have some wins, that would be fantastic. I can't wait to hear them.
That is so different than almost every sales coach I have ever come to work with or experience. Normally, it's within the first 5 minutes, I'm going to qualify you. And you stayed for a full hour after knowing they weren't qualified because you almost couldn't help yourself to give back because this industry has given you so much. And I'm proud of you for doing that.
It wasn't the right time to take. It was the right time to
Okay.
give. But when we lead like that, you holistically set up relationships for life. And that's important to me.
Mm-hmm.
This is important to us. Like I said, we wake up every day eager to learn, grow, and serve.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing else. To help electricians master sales, simplify their pricing, and deliver premium level service. Here's the catch. We talked about niching. Do we do more than that? Yes. Last night I spent an hour with people speaking to them specifically on attracting those all-stars and finding them so they can attract them. Specifically. That's not in our little catchy e-speech. That's not mastering sales. That's not simplifying pricing. It's not deliver premium level service. You and your niche are the same. I just want to make that parallel abundantly clear. It doesn't mean you can't do anything else. It just means when we speak to a specific problem, we get to solve that problem because we look like the subject matter expert in that case. And we are.
And I'm grateful for that. I truly am. So I know we're getting to around towards the hour at this point, but what I want to do is I want to make sure that you have the open floor to kind of add anything else to that you feel is relevant to your story. We've gotten from you being in almost like juvie and your situations with your mom, and then we've grown into you becoming a contractor, an independent contractor in concrete, and becoming the conduit king, and then getting into consulting and developing yourself and growing yourself. And this story seems almost unbelievable in an extent, where if you were to look at it day by day, it doesn't end up. But one thing that you've always told me is you like to look at things from a 30,000 foot view. So the question I have is, if we can take a step out of your own shoes, if you could look at your life from a 30,000 foot view, what would you tell our viewers, and what would you tell our listeners right now? What can they take away from your story?
Great question. Incredible setup. I was a little nervous today about this. I was, and you've done nothing but exceed my expectations with great questions today. So I think honestly, I mentioned earlier how I was playing below the line. A big piece of what's led me to this point today, where I seem to be, opening the very doors that I've attracted, have manifested this. Playing above the line, as we say, with ownership, accountability, and responsibility. Having that switch of, okay, there are some things I can't control, but I'm going to accept responsibility for everything anyways, because no one's going to do that for me. You ever point the finger at someone else? How does that go?
You point. In fact, anyone who's not looking at this, here's the example. You hold one finger up. By any definition, all of you viewers who can't watch me, point at anything with a closed fist. And what you'll find is one finger pointing at the problem, but the real problem is these three fingers that are pointing at you.
100%. It's always a mirror. As we say, your business is a mirror of your life. So it's health, family, then business. I mean, this stuff's really important. If you can achieve balance and you can achieve accountability, and within that accountability, you hold yourself accountable to taking that action, that 1% more every day, and just striving towards it. And I don't care if that's, I'm going to the gym this week, or I'm going to be intentional with my wife this week, or I'm going to spend an extra hour with my kids this week, or it could be business side. Hey, I'm going to do $1 million day this week, or I'm going to get all my business stuff done, all that to-do list. Whatever that is, invest in yourself, hold yourself accountable. And if you need help, as we all do with that accountability, seek that guidance, even if it costs you, because what it gives you is not even close to what it costs.
Holy shit. I was going to say, it's one of those things where literally, like, I'm your partner and I'm still learning things in just this interview. So in closing, I'd like to say something that I really feel comes from the heart. I mean, a lot of times you see me put my hands up almost in a sense of prayer. And what it's saying is I'm trying to say namaste. And what that means is I see the light that is within you. And I want you to know, Clay, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, you have a light. And if you do not share that light, your struggles, your experiences, your cumulative, almost exuding love in everything that you do, if you don't share that light with others, their lives will be worse off for it, because my life has been drastically better after knowing you. And almost everyone that I've ever seen get to know you can probably say the same. So if anyone can't see this, I would like to just pause and say, Clay, you are an absolute angel. You were a wonderful partner to have. And I cannot think of a better person that I would want to serve the vision with. So before
Thanks,
we
man.
wrap up, I just want to say it means the world interviewing on this. You deserve the praise. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I know that people are going to be listening to this on repeat. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Appreciate that. The only thing I didn't get to touch on, which I just want to end with, is what giving back really looks like. We give back to this movement, but the other one that's near and dear to me is giving back to other kids who are having a hard time. See, I feel looking back from this time that if I had other coaches in those years where I was struggling, I could have got here quicker. And so that's another mission of mine that will be realized in the coming years as we, get a little more steady with what we're doing currently. But as that time opens up, right, as the machine becomes more well-oiled, how to give back and how to find those future all-stars, because they're timeable. They might not be ready, but it's just those basics that they need help with so that they can take those adversities and everything they've grinded from and try to realize their true value.
That's a great way of adding this. I really appreciate you wrapping up in that way and just being able to say that, you're speaking to your vision. And I honestly think that your past makes you probably the best person to reach those kind of people. Similar to how me being neurodivergent, I can reach other people on the spectrum. You having that past allows you to better not only serve, but to be relatable to people who need the help the most. So as I said again, thank you for living the path you have. And thank you for always continuing to walk the one we're on right now.
All right, guys. Thank you for listening to my story today. That one's not going to happen too often, but you know what? Again, we're here. We're on a mission. Help electricians master sales, simplify pricing, and deliver premium level service. If we can do it, you can too. And we're going to tote this rope, even if it's one electrician at a time. So
Amen to
stay
that.
with us. Join us. We'll talk to you soon.
Take care.